In the evolution of cities, we've come a long ways very fast.
We're 20, 30 minutes away from anywhere you want to be in L.A. County.
I've worked with a number of prominent cities, and I can assure you that we have the best mayor and city council and executive team in the country.
Eric Dickerson. I was just looking at your new book, Eric Dickerson, Watch My Smoke. And on the back it says, Eric Dickerson is the greatest player in Los Angeles Rams history. And I can't deny that. You, your running style, unbelievable, and really in the conversation for greatest running back in NFL history. And you have the single season record, both as a rookie and all time, that you've held forever.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of those records. That people ask me about those. I say I have a lot more too, a lot more records. But you know, I think those two are kind of iconic because I did the 1808 my first year, my rookie season, and I always say that one's going to last longer because you know a team doesn't build an offense around a rookie, and I was fortunate that John Robinson did. And then the second year I came back and had the 2,000-yard season. So I'm very proud of both of those seasons.
What was it about your running style? It was described as upright. It really seemed so comfortable, casual, and had that fifth gear that most guys didn't have.
Well, you know, it was a good thing. It was a blessing and a curse at the same time because people would say, "Man, you're not trying hard. You're not running hard." They would say it to me all the time. Matter of fact, one of my first practices, and I got to Anaheim with the Rams. We ran the play, like a toss play, and I have to follow the guard and the tackle. And John Robinson said, stop. He said, son, you got to run faster than that. I said, Coach, I said, I'm running fast. He said, you jogging out here. I said, I'm not jogging. I said, I'll tell you what, get out here and try to catch me. So I've heard that my whole life, you know, that I look like I'm not trying or not running hard, but I was a track runner. I ran track. So that's just how I ran. I mean, I ran upright, but when I hit the line of scrimmage, I didn't have my shoulders upright. I was lean, but I'm leaning over, but I'm so tall that people thought I was running straight up. And I wore the big shoulder pads. Like these guys, now they wear the little baby shoulder pads.
Let's talk about your pads. Take me down, all the pads you wore, because
I wore everything. Let's just start. You know, I had the goggles, which I hated because I couldn't see. But, and then I had the neck roll, and the neck roll really didn't suffice a purpose. It just looked good. You know, I had it pulled out. I drilled holes in it and stretched it all the way out. I had my shoulder pads reinforced underneath. I wore a flak jacket under that, and I wore a rib protector. So I wore it all. I had the hip pads. I wore 2 hip pads, which are actually knee pads. I put them in the side. I wore what's called a butt pad, wore that in the back, knee pads, shin guards, elbow pads, the big round mouthpiece. And people say, man, don't slow you down. I said, no, I tried. I thought it would protect me, but trust me, you're getting hit. It doesn't protect everything.
Take me back to Sealy, Texas, known for the Sealy Posturepedic mattress and Eric Dickerson.
Well, in my hometown of Sealy, it wasn't a lot to do. I mean, it really isn't. I mean, when I grew up there, it was 2,000 people, one red light. You know, the big thing was to go to 7-Eleven, hang out to 7-Eleven, all the kids, you know, hang out to 7-Eleven, or you know, go to the country and go cow tipping. But it wasn't a lot there. I mean, the Sealy Posturepedic mattress shut down by, you know, when I remember, because, you know, I was a kid. Matter of fact, the first time I actually saw it, the factory, was about 10 years ago. Someone took me to it. I'm like, wow, this is what they said. Yeah, they said they make the mattresses. So Sealy's just a small, sleepy town. Now it's starting to grow because it's so close to Houston. Houston is starting to come that way. You have, you know, Katy is blowing up, and then Brookshire and then Sealy. So Sealy's getting to be a little bit bigger now.
Tell me what cow tipping is, for the uninformed.
Well, for us, you know, they try to catch the cow asleep standing up, and you try to sneak up on them and push the cow over. Now, I won't forget one time, we tried that, and a bull was out there. And a bull chased us out of the pen. So, like I said, when you're in a small town, it's nothing to do in small towns, but sometimes you just get in trouble.
Pretty advantageous to have that Eric Dickerson speed when the bull's chasing you. What about the recruiting of Eric Dickerson as a high school player? I mean, there are so many great stories, and eye-opening stories about that.
Well, I'll tell you about the recruiting. It was not easy. People think it's fun, but it wasn't. I mean, I was excited about it at first. I was the #1 recruit in the nation my senior year from a small town in Texas. All the colleges, SC, I met John Robinson, Oklahoma, A&M, SMU, Alabama. I mean, everybody recruited me. And, the coaches start, they come to the school, they start coming to your house, and it just became overwhelming. I mean, I think the overwhelming part was when a coach would say, if I don't get you, I'm gonna lose my job. I won't forget, it was one night, my mother came and woke me up. It was probably 1 o'clock in the morning. And I grew up in a shotgun house, small house. And she came to my room. She said, "Hey, Eric, it's a coach in here outside." I'm like, "Huh?" And I had finals the next day. She said, "He wants to talk to you." So I'm like, okay. I get up. I'll never forget. I'm sitting out on the porch, sitting out on my porch. He and I on the steps. I mean, the stars out. It was a bright night. And he said, we need to have you. If I don't get you, I'm gonna lose my job. I'm like, he said, "Man, tell me, what are you thinking about?" I said, "I'm thinking about sleeping right now." So,
You're a high school kid.
I was a high school kid. I mean, it was so much to recruiting. I mean, one of the things I remember the most, well, two things, is that University of Texas. I liked UT, but I wasn't really crazy about UT. And one of the coaches, Fred Akers, and he had 3 other guys came to my house, and they talked to me. They knew I liked OU, I liked Oklahoma, because I liked Coach Switzer. And one of the coaches said, "Hey, let me talk to you in the back for a second, son." So I said, okay. So we go to the back. My mother was up there with the other coaches, and he says, "Son, look like you're not interested in your state school." I said, I'm interested in it. He said, "Well, look, we know you like Oklahoma." He said some derogatory things about Coach Switzer. He said, "We know you like SC, but that's a long ways away." He said, "Look, let me tell you something. In SMU will never beat us. As long as you play that, we'll never beat us." And he said, "If you don't consider your state school, when you get out of college, we'll make sure you don't get a job in the state of Texas." Wow. And I'm like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." And I will never forget, I told him, "F you, man." I went back to my mother. I said, "Mom," I said, "make them leave." So again, she said, "Well, nice meeting you, gentlemen." And so when he walked out, she said, "What did that man say to you?" I told her. She said, "Oh, hell no, you would never go to school less." So that was even better for me. So
now, this was several decades before name, image, likeness, but it sounds like some people already cut some unofficial name, image, likeness deals.
I don't know what you're talking about. So what are you trying to get at?
Well,
we're talking about the Trans Am?
Chapter 3.
We're talking about the Trans Am?
Trans Am.
The Trans Am? Look, I'll tell you about the Trans Am, and people have said for years where the Trans Am came from, and I've always said, my grandmother bought that Trans Am. My grandmother bought the Trans Am. So how the Trans Am went down, as far as I know, first of all, I was a kid, and I passed by, it was at a Pontiac dealership called Leo Jonigan, Pontiac, right off the 10 freeway. I used to go by and see the car, drive by, go and look at the Trans Am. I'm like, man, I like that car. So I told my mother about the car and told my grandmother about the car. And so, "You like the car?" I said, "Yes, I like the car." And, and I remember one day, I don't know, it's just like one day, say, "Hey, we're gonna go to Houston. We're going to Leo Jonigan, look at the cars." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So we drive down, and my grandmother from Houston and my grandfather met us over. And my mother, who people think when I say my grandmother's my great-great aunt, because I was legally adopted. So my mother was older. So we go into Leo Jonigan, make a long story short, we talking, and all of a sudden I drive the car, love the car. And there was some other guys that I didn't know, who their boosters, I didn't know who they were. "Come on, here, take the keys, your car." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "It's yours." So have the car, NCAA comes in, investigate me and all that kind of stuff, found nothing. And I'll never forget when I had the keys, my mother said, "Eric, you ain't got to worry about nothing with this car." I'm like, "Okay." So sure enough, when the recruiting process started, when they came, like I said, talked to me at my school about it, I didn't find out till later. I asked my mother, I think, I might have been still playing pro football or retired from football. I said, "Mom," I said, "tell me about why did the Trans Am transaction go down?" She said, "Eric," she said, "look," she said, "your grandmother paid for that car." She said, they paid for it. She said, "They wrote a check for that car." Because my grandmother and grandfather could afford it. They lived in Houston, and my grandfather was a crane operator. And they got a new car like every 3 or 4 years. And for them, one thing about, they got a Cadillac, and the Cadillac was a black man's Mercedes back in those days. So she said, "Your grandmother paid for the car, and A&M gave her the cash back for the car." And that's how the car was. And it's like I said, my grandmother bought the car.
Yes, she did. Now, you eventually upgraded, I think, to a Corvette?
To a Corvette. I got a Corvette. Yeah, I got a Corvette Stingray. I love that car.
The Trans Am went to?
The Trans Am went to my best friend at SMU. Let me tell you something. At SMU, a lot of guys had cars, you know, and I can say that. Look, back in those, everybody had a car. That was the thing to have, a kid having a car. Everybody was doing all kind of things back in those, you know, A&M, Texas. I mean, I went to play against guys from Texas that were getting money, had cars, A&M the same thing. That was how they did it. I mean, it depends on if you got caught or you didn't get caught. And, you know, we didn't, I mean, when I was there, we didn't get caught doing anything.
I'll tell you who had a nice car. Walter Payton had a nice car. He had a nice car from Kangaroos that he got, and you got?
Well, the year that I broke OJ's rushing record, the 2,000-yard record, Walter Payton also broke Jim Brown's all-time rushing record. And Walter was my friend, and he got a Lamborghini. I mean, saw it in the paper, nice Lamborghini. So we was getting close to the record, and the guy said, "Man, he probably get a nice car too." I'm like, "Well, we'll see." So I'll never forget, I broke the record, and my sponsor was Adidas. Y'all still owe me. They come over to the complex, and it's a cake, and a carrot cake. And I'm like, and the guys are like, "Man, what's a cake?" I mean, and I couldn't even eat it because I'm allergic to nuts. And I would get Dennis Harris say, I mean, is it a key in this cake or something? So basically, what I got rushed for 2,000 yards, he was with Kangaroo. He got a Lamborghini, I got a carrot cake.
Wow.
So that's what you get for rushing for 2,000 yards in 1984.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a nice, it was out of Vons.
Right, it looked like a Vons cake. It was Vons were around.
The 2105 is a number that's basically been etched in stone for the last almost 40 years, those yards. You set the record, you broke the record. 47 gap was a huge play for you, right? 47, 46 gap?
Our signature play was 46 and 47 gap. You know, that's what we done for 46, 47 gap, toss right, toss left. Those were my favorite plays at the Rams. Stuff that get me outside, you know, use my speed and cutting ability. So when we played the Oilers that day, we had to play the Oilers, and we had one game left to play the 49ers. Was our last game of the season. And I needed 215 yards to break that record that day. And so we thought, man, we'd probably get maybe 160, 170, because they wasn't really good against the run. And so as the game went on, it got, you know, kind of, they start talking, I start talking, and I don't talk, you know, and I won't forget the guy, Steve Bostic, was talking to me, and "You ain't gonna break no record." And I remember I told myself, "I'm gonna break this record on y'all's ass today." I said more than that, but I can't say it on here. And sure enough, when we got close, I think I was only 8 yards away. Now think about it. It was like second and 8, second and 7, and Jeff looked, because we were just running the ball, just running it, and he looked up, kneeled down, looked up at me and said, "Eric, what play you want?" I said 47 gap. He said 47 gap it is on 2, ready to break, and we picked up 9 yards, and we set the record that day.
Yeah, amazing. And like you said, the rookie record would probably be untouchable. Although Zeke Elliott had a good year, but fell short, obviously. A lot of guys we've seen fall short of that record.
Yeah, matter of fact, glad you said that. Zeke owed me a jersey because I told him he wasn't going to break that record. I told Marshall Faulk, I told Zeke Elliott, I told Ingram, you know, I told them all. You can't get that record.
Yeah. What was it like going from the Rams to the Colts? Halloween, you find out the news, and didn't a police officer pull you over?
Well, yeah, I can tell you. I mean, look, I'll say this. I wanted to play my whole career for the Los Angeles Rams. I really did. I love playing for the Rams, love, you know, my teammates. The organization was not the best organization. You know, I can honestly say that I've never played for a good organization. I just never have. I mean, I wasn't that fortunate. Leaving L.A. was hard, but, you know, it was something that I knew this much here. I wasn't being paid fairly. There was no doubt about that, you know, and back in those days, we had no out. We had no free agency, nothing. And so for me, you know, it got ugly and ugly. And I'll tell you what really kind of put it over the top was, I go to John Shaw. I go to John Shaw's office, meet with John. It took me a month to get a meeting with John Shaw. Now imagine, and he was the general manager. So imagine right now, a player takes you a month, say for Zeke Elliott to get a meet with the general manager. A month? I mean, that's what it took.
Crazy.
I go in, I meet with him. I say, "Hey," I said, "John." He said, "Well, you know, why with that raspy? Why are you here, Eric?" I said, "John, you know, my contract." "Oh, well, you have a contract, Eric." So I said, "John," I said, "Man, it ain't right, blah, blah, blah." And I said, John, he said, well, you got to prove it. I said, John, I led the league in rushing last year. No, you didn't. Walter did. I said, no, I led the league in rushing. No, Eric. I said, we arguing. Let me get the book. Gets the book, open up. Oh, you did? You know I led the league in rushing last year, John. So I said, look, John, I said, I'll tell you what. I said, now think about this. I said, if I rush for 1,500 yards, I said, you pay me like Marino and Elway. They were making $1 million. I said, pay me like that. I'm making like 300. He said, he thought about it. No, we're not gonna do that. He said, well, okay. So at that point, stuff just started falling apart. And when I got traded to Indy, I gotta say, man, I was really disappointed. I was hurt because, you know, I played hard for the Rams. I mean, 30 carries this week, no problem. 30 carries the next week, no problem. 30 carries the week after that, no problem. You know, that's just how it was. And I won't forget when I got traded, I was at my house I was going to a Halloween party. Jim Gray was there, and we were leaving the house, and the phone rang. And that's when phones weren't in the car. You know, when the phones were in the car, built in the car. You didn't have the portable phones. So I said, man, let me answer the phone. No, come on. I said, hold on. So I picked the phone. Big E. I'm like, Coach? Because Coach Meyer. I said, what's up, Coach? Hey, I just made a trade for you. I'm like, what? I didn't know where he was. He said, I'm in Indianapolis. I'm like, Indianapolis? He said, yeah. So I said, okay, Coach. So I hung up the phone. I said, man, I just got traded. And he said, really? I said, yep. So I had to go pack, and Jim was taking me to the airport, and we got stopped by the police. And I won't forget, Jim said, Eric Dickerson just got traded. The police was like, got traded? What? So he said, yeah. So he went to go by a studio and do a quick interview. I did that, got to the airport. I never forget, I still can remember, you know, taking that late flight to Indiana. The flight took off, looking down, seeing all the lights, you know, all the beautiful lights of Los Angeles, and flying off, and just watching them just fade away, and, you know, in the back. And I sat there in the shade. When I woke up, they said, hey, the captain comes on, we're about to land in Indianapolis, Indiana. You know, buckle up your seatbelt. Buckle up, you know, blah, blah, blah. I opened the blinders up, and it was about 5 in the morning. I look down, and I just see cornfields. I'm like, wow, this is different. So, I mean, being in Indy was cool for a while, but I'm not an Indianapolis guy, to be honest. It's just that wasn't my place.
They didn't ask much of you. They gave you like 3 days to practice before your first game.
They gave me 2 days to practice.
Oh, 2 days.
Yeah, 2 days to practice. Maybe not even 2. No, I take that back. 1 day of practice, because I got there. I think it was a Friday evening. I went over plays with Ron and the offensive, the coach that night, and we played the New York Jets the next day in New York. So I didn't have much time to practice. I played okay. I mean, I think I had like 50 yards, something like that in that game.
You were literally going through plays with the coach in his hotel room, right?
Right.
Handoffs and everything?
Right. They came to my room, because you understand, you know, certain football teams, and like 2, 4, 6, 8 for a running back is on the right, you know, most of the time. Mm-hmm. And 1, 3, 5, 9 is to the left. Well, with the Colts, it was flipped around. So, you know, 2, 4, 6, 8 was to my left, and 1, 3, 5 is to the right. So it's, man, like, dang. And so you got to try to flip your mind around and think of it, say, okay, we say 47 gap, you know, I was going to my right, now it's going to my left. So it was difficult at first, but you get used to it after a while.
Didn't you have your Rams goggles when you were playing for the Colts?
Of course, I still had the yellow colors on, right? Because I still had the yellow on it, because you know, my stuff matched it. Look, I like my uniform to look good. I like everything to look tight. So yeah, it matched, you know, the Rams colors.
Yeah, well, I remember there were the yellow ones that it was so soon that they threw you in there.
Yeah.
Then you went to the Raiders, right?
Yeah.
The Raiders the next stop? What was that like, playing for Al?
Different. You know, Al was different. You know, Al ran that football team. I mean, the thing I think that really was disturbing is that whatever was going on with him and Marcus, and I didn't really know Marcus that well. I knew him, but I mean, we wasn't really that close. And they told me they were going to trade Marcus. And look, to me, Marcus Allen is the ultimate Raider. He really is. I mean, we're best of friends now. And I just felt that, you know, they brought me there in a sense when I figured out, like, kind of to mess with him. And then I wasn't playing, because it was times in games where I would have 100 yards at half and I wouldn't play anymore. I mean, I'm like, I just sit on the bench. So it was a very odd situation, you know, playing with the Raiders. But, you know, like I said, once a Raider, always a Raider. So I respect the organization. I
think of you as a Ram, but I wonder if when you walk around L.A., if those Raider fans remember you as a Raider.
There's a lot of them do. It's funny. They can say, once a Raider, always a Raider. That's what they say to me, you know. So it's cool.
Yeah. What do you think about this year's team and the success they've had and the Matthew Stafford, Cam Akers coming back, Sony Michel, and the team in general?
I think Les Snead has done a really good job of putting this team together. You know, I'm not big on #1 draft picks. You know, and people get stuck up on these draft picks because draft picks a lot of times don't pan out. I mean, they don't. You got to understand. You draft a kid and it's maybe he may play well. I mean, they drafted me. It was a gamble. You know, you draft guys. I've seen so many #1 draft picks, even when I was in Indy, that didn't pan out. You know, a few with the Rams too didn't pan out. So if you got something a guy you can take that's a real solid player, like getting Von Miller, like getting Matthew Stafford, OBJ. I mean, these guys are our defensive back, Jalen Ramsey. I mean, you're getting guys that are proven, a proven product. I've got to give, like I said, Les Snead a lot of credit for doing that and putting that out of his mind. I mean, that's how he built this football team. I think the team is a really good team, lots of talent everywhere. I mean, and the only way that we get beat and beat ourselves. I mean, a good football team, that's what happens. For me, if we don't turn the ball over, they don't turn the ball over. If they don't turn the ball over, they pretty much could win pretty much every game. But you don't be up and down. I've said this from the playoff run. We started with Arizona. I said, look, if we don't turn the ball over, we beat them handily. We didn't turn the ball over. The next game, everybody's, oh yeah, I gotta play the Bucs. You know, Tom Brady. I said, look at our history with the Bucs. We pretty much always beat the Bucs, Tom Brady included. I mean, we had him here early in the year. We beat him. And I said, when we went down there, if we don't turn the ball over, I said, you hear me say this, we will control that game from beginning to end. But what do? Turn the ball over 4 times and made it out of a football game. Now, San Francisco is a little bit different. That team has been beating up on us. They run the football. But once again, if you hang on to that ball, we end up beating them also. So, like I said, the football team itself, and I think the really missing piece of this for this team, for me, the last couple of years, was Matthew Stafford. To me, that was always our weak link. And I just got to say it. I mean, I've said it before. Look, Jared Goff did a great job when he did what he could. But I always thought we needed better at that position.
Do you ever think you played a role in bringing Sean McVay to the Rams in a weird way?
Well, I mean, with Fisher leaving, yes and no. I mean, look, my thing is this. Like I say, one thing about me is I'm real honest. You know, if you don't want the truth, don't ask me. You know, ask somebody else. The deal with Fisher is, and look, I don't really know Fisher, Coach Fisher. I mean, as he say, they played against the Bears. I don't remember him playing. I want our team to win. That's what all I was saying. This is L.A. This is not St. Louis. You know, you can't go 7-9 here. You can't go 8-8. You know, saying, man, wow, if we'd have turned that ball over, we'd have won. If we just had one more quarter, we'd have won. I say that's what losers say. Losers say that kind of stuff. If. And that's what I mean. I was just kind of critical, but not overly critical of the football, not of the football team, of mainly our offense, because our defense was playing great. But, you know, we need to win football games. And then all of a sudden, you know, I won't forget, I asked for some passes on the sideline, and I'm going to tell you, I didn't even need the passes. I did it just to see what they were going to say. And they said, man, Eric, I don't know, man. You got to ask Coach Fisher. Coach Fisher, I mean, they want to talk to you about it. I'm like, okay, cool. So sure enough, he said, he's going to call you. He called me. I don't know what day it was. It was after a ceremony we had, the groundbreaking ceremony for the new stadium at SoFi. He calls me, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, Eric, hey, Eric. I said, hey, Coach. Hey, he said, how's it going? He said, good. He said, look, man, I'm going to get right at this here. I said, okay. He said, you're not going to be talking about my team. You're going to be talking about my players and spec stuff for the team. He said, as long as I'm head coach here, it ain't happening. He said, I'm just telling you, we're not doing nothing for you. You know, I just sit and I listened to everything he had to say. And then he talked for maybe 2-3 minutes, and I said, okay. I said, well, hey, Coach, man, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. He said, okay, thank you. He said, I'll talk to you later. I said, oh, no. It's my turn now. I said, Coach, let me tell you something, man. I said, first of all, the Rams effed over me when I played for the Rams. I said, man, I don't work for the effing Rams. I said, let me tell you something. I said, I played for that football team. I wore that uniform. I said, you can go coach anywhere. I said, but I will always be Eric Dickerson of the Los Angeles Rams. And boy, when I said that, all of a sudden, wait a minute, hold it, Eric. You know, that's not what I want. I want you in there. You know, it just went a whole different way. And then at the end, I said, look, Coach, no offense. I said, but as long as you head coach there, I'll never come back to another game. And that was the end of that conversation. And a couple of days later, we lost. He was fired. And then we got Sean McVay. which I think is the best thing ever happened for this organization and this football team, and the city too, because look, LA deserves winners. I mean, if you live in LA, you're not going to watch the Dodgers lose. You're not going to watch the Lakers lose. You're not going to, the Lakers are suffering right now. You're not going to watch the Rams lose. You want to see winners, and it's not just winning; it's how you win. This is LA. I mean, that's what you want. So, blame me if you want, but I'm happy to see us win. I'm happy to see us in this game at home in the Super Bowl game.
And how do you like SoFi Stadium?
It's fabulous. I don't think it's anything like it. I think when you walk into that stadium, you walk in. So I first walked in, I went, wow, this place is amazing. I mean, you have to, because that, whatever you call it, octagon, whatever, it's humongous. I mean, it really is. It's such a fabulous stadium. I got to say, the builders and Jerry, our owner, Stan Kroenke, you have to give him credit for dishing out all the money for it. So it's just a fabulous stadium.
Was there a time you thought football might not come to L.A.?
No, I had a feeling the Rams would come back at one point. I mean, look, nothing against St. Louis. They didn't belong in St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis is a baseball town. It really is. I mean, the Los Angeles Rams was here, I think, in 1937. I mean, they started here. I mean, when I talked to guys that used to play for the Rams, the Deacon Jones, the Jackie Slaters, the Jim Youngblood, Jack Youngblood, when I first got to the Rams, they said, look, when we were in L.A., the Rams, we ran this town. It was a Rams town. When we left and went to Orange County, it changed, because a lot of fans didn't want to call it the Orange Curtain. Didn't want to go out to Orange County. It's too far. And so, they lost a lot of fans when they moved to St. Louis, most definitely. Some fans, still watch the Rams. They still, in their heart, they still love them. But, you lose fans. And, look, we've been gone 22 years at one point till we came back in 2016. And people expected the Rams to be like, it's like this. If you got a wife or you a man and your wife leaves, or look, I'm gonna go to the store and I'll be back. And I come back 22 years later, you're like, hey, you back? Come on in here. You're like, oh, everybody's like, who the hell are you? You're gone. So that's what happened. You lose fans. You picked up the 49ers. I hate the 49ers. You got Cowboy fans. I hate the Cowboys. And all those fans. The Raiders, you got Raider fans. And, this is a Raider town right now. You just have to say it. But trust me, this will become a Ram city once again.
You played in Orange County. You didn't play in L.A., but you lived in Malibu, 2-hour drive to practice. I still don't know how you did that.
I know.
What was that like? And what was it like being an L.A. guy in the 80s and the toast of the town with Magic and...
Well, I say, being in L.A. back in the 80s, man, was great. It really was. I mean, I lived in Irvine. I moved out to Malibu, what Calabasas now, that's my area is called. I won't forget, I went to the Lakers game. Dr. Curlin was the Lakers doctor and our doctor. And he said, Eric, you want to go to a basketball game? Like, sure, Doc. I mean, and I didn't know. He said, man, you just go Dr. Curlin, you go sit on the floor. I'm like, what you mean on the floor? Like the seats? I'm like, oh, cool. So I go to the game with him, and I'll never forget, I'm sitting there watching them warm up, and Magic comes over, and Kareem, and Worthy, and everybody, comes over and shakes my hand, and they like, wow. They announce me on the loudspeaker, and I get a standing ovation. I'm so embarrassed. I don't like that kind of stuff. But that's just how L.A. was. That's how L.A. is still right now. And I won't forget, I went to a restaurant called Nicky Blair's. This was years ago. And I'm sitting there, and I knew the owner, Nicky. I look over, and I see Clint Eastwood. I'm like, that's Clint Eastwood. I say, hey, Nicky, is that Clint Eastwood? He said, yeah, Eric, come over and meet him. I'm like, no. He said, no, come over. He'd like to meet you. I'm like, okay. So I get up, and I got close to him. He said, hey, Eric. Man, now think about that. Clint Eastwood knowing a boy from Sealy, Texas. I'm like, how you doing, Mr. Eastwood? They say, I'm a big fan. I say, so am I. So, that was L.A. in the 80s. And it was a lot to do out here, clubs, girls, it was a fabulous city.
Did you have a love-hate relationship with football toward the end?
Yeah, man. Football was a sport that I loved it so much, Sam. I loved everything about it. At one point when I was a kid and even being an adult, I would go outside. And when it came close to football season, like, oh yeah, it's football time. You could just smell it in the air. You just knew that it was football time, and I loved it. And after the years of playing, the dispute with the Rams and the Colts and just. It's all the politics, and people don't believe it, but it's politics in the NFL. It's politics with teams. It's politics with playing time. I'm like, man, they just made me hate it. It saddened me because it was a sport I loved so much, but but at the end, I hated it, and I was glad to get away from it. But I still love it.
You look like you could play now.
Yeah, thanks, but no, I'm good.
When you look at the game now, how has it changed?
I think they do. I got to say, they do a better job of protecting players. They do a good job, the best they can do. The free agency helps so much. I mean, because when I was playing and, my contract disputes, I was vilified. I was a bad guy. I was a malcontent. I was things I'd never heard of. I didn't know what the hell what is a malcontent? I didn't know what that was. The game has changed a lot for the players. They have ways to talk about themselves, not the writers who back then wrote for the teams and the city, and they would talk about the players. The players had no outlet. So I'm glad that they have Instagram, Facebook, and all those, Twitter. They can tell their story without some guy saying that, oh, this is what it was. I had a writer wrote an article about me. He wrote some of the stuff I said. I'll never forget he put in quotation, but this is what he really means. I'm like, I didn't say that. I mean, I think it's great for the league and for the players to have an outlet in a way, and like I say, protect the players. I think they've done some good things, but they have a long way to go. I mean, like our pension is laughable. I mean, the guys who run the NFLPA are laughable. I mean, it is. I mean, it's really sad. I look at baseball, I look at basketball, all the good stuff that they do for their ex-players, and for us, it's sad. But for the current players, I'm happy for the current players because I have a cousin that plays, Ricky Seals. He plays for the what they call the Commanders. I got to be careful. Yep. The Commanders, and the stuff is a lot better for the players now.
I say it looks like you could play, but you have some physical effects, don't you, from all those years of pounding?
Of course you do. I mean, of course I do. I mean, I have I had to retire because of a neck injury. After I retired, the first 2 years, I had to sleep sitting up in a chair, back like almost like a recliner, because I couldn't lay down because it was being so much pain. I don't sleep well at night still. I have a shoulder, I can't sleep on my left side. I have a bad toe. I have headaches sometimes. I mean, that was the price you paid for playing. I mean, and the thing is people will say, well, you know what you were getting yourself into? Think about this. I started playing football at, 13 years old. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. Okay, you carry to college. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. You're playing something you love. They don't say, hey, you could have brain damage. They don't say that. You get to pros, they don't tell you that. You could have brain damage, you could have this. You have no idea. And I think the big thing is that people ask me would I do it all over again, And now they tell the players, like they have a contract. You can't sue the NFL because They do know now, but they protect them better. Would I do it all over again? And people ask that. I say, well, I'll tell you this much here. I would do it all over again for one reason, and that's to take care of my mother, Viola Dickerson. That's the only reason I would play it, because she hated it. But I loved it, and it gave me a way to support give her a life that my mother would have never had. I mean, so I would sacrifice my life and my body for her with no questions asked, because she did the same for me.
The joint pain is one thing, but the headaches, that's scary, isn't it?
It's scary. I mean, look, I know I'm not the guy I used to be. I mean, my memory's not what it used to be. That's one reason I wrote the book now. I think it's a perfect time for it now, because a lot of this stuff I may not remember later. I mean, I'm sure, I hope I am, but I don't know who I'll be 5 or 10 years from now. Will I still be this guy? Will look like a guy that could possibly play? I've seen a lot of players, go down bad. I mean, I saw the great Gale Sayers when he was having really issues. I mean, and I won't forget, I'm talking to him, he kept saying the same thing over and over, and his wife's Eric, he says, he's getting dementia. And I'm like, wow. It breaks your heart. It really does break your heart to see the great players, they're not the guys that they used to be. And that happens to all of us.
How do your football experiences affect how you handle your young son playing football, who's a phenom at age 9?
Man, he is so fast, and I'm not just saying it. I mean, I'm not that guy. I mean, I don't try to coach my son's team. I don't say nothing. I just sit there and watch. I just tell him little stuff to do, but he is so fast. He's such a good athlete. I mean, I said this to my best friend, Charles Drayton, when my son was 4.5 years old. I said, he's going to be a better athlete than me. He said, Dick, don't say that. Don't put that pressure on him. I said, I see it. I just see the stuff he can do. And now, when they see him, they say, man, I think you might be right, because, he can run, he can cut, he plays baseball, he's got a good eye for that. He's taking the piano, he wants to know how to play the piano. He's fast. I mean, and the thing is that now in sports, they have things that we didn't have, like, trainers and all that kind of stuff to get you ready for it. So if he does play football, and I told him, I said, look, I explained to him, I said, look, Dallas, you play flag now. I said, now your dad played tackle, and I showed you, he's seen it. I said, now this is a violent sport. I said, if you want to play, I said, I'll let you play, but I just want you to know you could possibly get hurt. And because he's 9, and I won't let him play till he's probably in 7th grade. And I said, if you want to play, he said, I'd like to play one day, Dad. I said, okay. I said, when he gets closer, let's see if you still feel that same way. But I wouldn't stop him because it would be unfair. But I want him to understand that going in, what are the ramifications of playing a violent sport like football?
When you look at this Super Bowl, you mentioned the turnovers, if the Rams don't turn the ball over. How do you see it coming down with that defensive front against that Bengals offensive line? And what do you think the factors are in this game?
Well, the big factor is not turn the football over. I've said this all year with the Rams. I said it going to their playoff run, when they played Arizona. I said, if we don't turn the football over, we beat them handily, and we did. We played the Bucs the next week, and people were like, oh, Tom Brady. I said, look, Tom's a great quarterback, but we have a history with the Bucs. I said, we pretty much always beat them. We beat them early this year. And I said, we don't turn the ball over. I said, we control this game. I said, we could even crush them. People were like, oh, no. I said, okay. Well, it was going to be a crushing, but we turned the ball over 4 times, and we got out of there by the skin of our teeth. And thank God for our quarterback, Matt Stafford, that people just hate on. I'm just so sick of hating on him, man. And, San Francisco, same thing. I said, it's going to be a different kind of game. They're physical, they run the football, and we won that game. But, this game here, I see pretty much, just like I said, all other games. If we don't turn the ball over, that's our own worst enemy. We will control this football game from the beginning to end. Then I say it again, if we don't turn it over, we turn it over once, okay. But 3, 4 times, you could get beat like that. I mean, I think that our offensive line will do a good job against their defensive front. They have a good defense, good defensive front. The offensive line is not that good. Our defensive line should be able to handle them, and I think that it's going to give our secondary, Jalen Ramsey, some chances to possibly take some picks or take some chances.
Are there players on this Rams team who you really connect with, who know Eric Dickerson and have asked you advice, or have you stayed in the background?
I stay in the background. I text one guy pretty much and that's Aaron Donald. Just say, man, it's fun to watch you play, man. Great now would sit there. His replies are, thanks, big dog. I mean, it's just, I'm not a defensive player. I never really watched defensive players play that much, until you watch Lawrence Taylor back in the day. You stand up and watch him play. But to watch an interior lineman play, a guy that's in the middle, it's almost like watching Reggie White all over again. He's such a great player. I mean, you see damn, see how quick he beat that guy? Or he just almost get out the way, like slap him out the way. It's fun to watch a defensive player play, and I love watching Aaron Donald play.
What current backs in the league do you like?
Well, you got to like Derrick Henry because he's big. I like big backs. It's funny, they're talking about, oh, yeah, he's a big back. This guy's a big back. How big is he? Oh, he's 5'10". I'm like, 5'10"? That's a little bitty guy. He weighs 220. He's a short, I call him, that's a fat back. So for me, you got Derrick Henry. I still like Zeke. I still love watching Zeke play. Alvin Kamara is fun to watch coming out the backfield. The kid I can't think of his name, in New York, the young Saquon. Man, I was really excited to watch him play, but I said it when he got drafted. Bad football team. I say not gonna last on that bad football team. And it's sad to see a guy with such great talent not get a chance to really use it, because he's almost like a Barry Sanders type. But those are some of the backs I like to watch play.
Is Deebo Samuel gonna give the Rams problems for years to come?
Yeah. He's a special guy. He really is. A guy that can come out the backfield. Thick legs, runs hard. He runs like get the hell out the way. He frustrates me, and he wears my old college number, so I can't be mad at him.
Getting back to the book real quick, what are you proudest of?
I'm proud of everything in that book. I think that I get a chance to tell my story in my own words. You get the audio book, you hear me talking the audio book. Like I did one, I told you my Howard Cosell story. I'll tell it to you. Matter of fact, we play in the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. And we get on the elevator door, and there's Howard Cosell. And like, man, I'll go see. He said, Eric Dickerson. I said, how's it going? How's it going, Eric? I said, great. Let me ask you a question, Eric. How in the hell did you and Craig James split time at SMU? I said, well, how I explain the story to him? He said, he should thank his lucky stars. I said, well, man, it wasn't like that. But it was just things in that book and how we're doing. I'm like, man, I'm so glad he did my game. You know what? I'm really happy and I got a chance to tell my side in a sense of how I was betrayed in the media, you know, as being a bad guy, you know, a guy that was selfish. And you know, I think the thing that in that time that hurt me the most was not the things they said about me. I didn't really care because I didn't really read articles. My coach, Ron Meyer, said, look, don't read them articles in college. He said, because they love you one minute and they hate you the next. So if it was a good article, I said, I didn't read it. I've only read a few articles in the last couple of weeks about I read one in the L.A. Times, I think I don't know, New York Post. It was one I read not long ago. It was okay, it was good. But I think that to really get out the guy that I am, my mother would read that stuff and it would hurt her so bad. She said, Eric, she said, this is not you. She said, these are lies. I know why we raised you. That's what makes me most proud. If you read it, fine. If you don't, but I know the person that I am. People know one thing about me. I'm loyal. I'm loyal. My mother said, you got one problem, son, your loyalty. You're too loyal, and people are not as loyal as you. And I like that about myself. I won't change that. I mean, but there's so many stories in that book that I told, I mean, about the playing days, the Trans Am story. I just told you about the Trans Am story. But me personally, I think I talked to guys who've called me about the book, players, man. Eric said, I hadn't read a book in 22 years. He said, man, it's such a good book, man, and it's so you. So it makes me proud of it.
Comes out on audiobook February 22nd.
February 22nd.
In your voice.
In my voice, yeah. And let me tell you, man, that was hard. God, it was hard. Because I'm dyslexic, too. And reading that book, and all of a sudden, the words started running. I said, hold it, man, give me a minute. I got to sit and look at these words. These words starting to run all together. But I'm so glad I did it, and I'm very proud of it.
Hall of Fame running back Eric Dickerson, one of the greatest players in NFL history. Thank you so much for coming to Hall of Farmers.
Sam, thank you very much for having me.